Good evening and welcome to the Fallout Bar once again on the conclusion of night 7 of the 2026 Premier League of Darts. It's me, Gerwen, once again in the driving seat with you this evening, and I'm glad to say I've been joined by our favourite northeast correspondent, Dan. Good evening, Dan. How are you, mate? All right?
I'm very good. You might have made Dan Simpson just cry there, but I'm brilliant, mate. I'm very good.
Well, he's not here, so he can't he can't argue the case. But yeah, slightly earlier start than usual this evening, of course. First quarter final not being played, but on the whole, Dan, what did you think of night 7? Obviously, we'll go into match by match in a second, but as a spectacle.
I really enjoyed tonight. I missed last week, but night 5, I think it was because it was the UK Open weekend. I kind of felt like no one really wanted to be there, but tonight I felt like it was a good show, and we got some brilliant performances. We got some flattish performances at some points, but I thought it was a good night of darts myself. Yeah.
Yeah, in probably the highlight coming in the semi-final. Well, I guess you could argue the final in the end was a bit of was a bit of a highlight, but the semi-finals in terms of standard certainly didn't disappoint. But yeah, we'll as we do every week, we'll go through game by game from start to finish, and then we'll get you all involved in the comments with the predictions for next week, of course, which is fixtures are based on the league table next week. But yeah, start tonight's quarterfinal. Obviously, Dan, first quarterfinal, Van Veen, Van Gerwen. Jan Van Veen putting on social media yesterday that he was in hospital with kidney stones, so would not be playing in Dublin. For Michael, who's hasn't won a game since he missed a night himself, probably a bit of relief for you to get those 2 points without having to break sweat.
Yeah, I think a bit of a blessing. I mean, I think Van Gerwen was nowhere guaranteed to pick up 2 points in that match. I do think it also has the curse, the fact that you go into the semi-final slightly cold. You having to wait around quite a bit. But I'm sure. I think most weeks in the Premier League, if you can show up and pick 2 points up, it's usually a good week, and he's been able to do it without throwing a dart. So I'm sure he'll not be too annoyed.
That's exactly it. And when you're sort of struggling for form on Premier League, wins are tough to come by. Anyway, if you can get one without having to throw a dart, then it does put you in.
You're
Um,
fading in and out a little bit there, mate. Just
oh,
as
I'm
well.
really sorry. Right, let's see. I'll try not to move as much when I'm sitting, and hopefully that works for us. Yeah, for Van Gerwen, as I was saying, who's been struggling for victories, getting the 2 points to potentially get his Premier League back on track will certainly be beneficial. For Jan Van Veen, kidney stones are no laughing matter. I don't know if he's had surgery or if it's just a case of he's been in hospital with them. Does this sort of derail his campaign a bit and potentially come back and haunt him later on?
It could do. I mean, look, health has to be the priority at the end of the day, especially he's a very young man. Kidney stones, there could be complications. It needs dealing with, and that has to be number one. But yeah, I mean, with how tight everything's looking, there's a real chance someone like Jan could miss out by 2 points. And you just hope that's not going to be the case. You want whoever makes it to that final four to be there on merit and merit alone. So hopefully it is just the 1 week he's going to miss. I mean, I have no idea the severity of his illness, but I think if for him to pull out, he must have been in pretty bad shape.
Well, exactly. That's it, 'cause I think in his post on his page, he put he loves the Dublin crowd, he enjoys playing there, and he was really going to miss it. So yeah, hopefully it's a speedy recovery, and that we do see him back on stage next week. Because I think when it is such a tight middle in the Premier League table, as in missing more than one night could be missing one night could be the difference between the playoffs and not making the playoffs, but missing two could certainly prove a bit of a barrier if he's got ambitions of making the playoffs. Moving on then to the second quarterfinal of the evening, and both players scoring well. And is it a case of Stephen Bunting again, literally coming out on top 6-3? Is it a case for Bunting again that he plays well, just his opponent seemed to put in that performance that knocks him out? Similar to what we saw last year when he went 7 weeks without a win. Is it a case that he's just unlucky with how his opponents played?
It just feels like it's textbook Stephen Bunting. Unfortunately for him, it's not a good thing. I mean, I always see Johnny Clayton and James Wade, they have the ability where they can average 5 less and they'll still win. It feels like Bunting needs to average 5 more to be able to get that win. He's got it in reverse, and it's hard. You don't want to kick a man that's averaged 104 at the end of the day. He hasn't really done a lot wrong, but at the top level of the sport, that's the difference. And he can win nights. He can absolutely compete. But I think what we've seen on the form is more often than not, he will be undone by that type of performance from Luke.
Yeah, and I think that's it, isn't it? He's had 7 darts at a double this evening. He's converted 3 of them. But the reality is, if you want to beat Luke Littler, you've got to be getting more darts at a double. You've got to be creating chances and almost allowing yourself to miss a dart or 2 every leg, because you know you'll be under pressure from Luke Littler then. And sort of talking of Luke Littler, I guess in the past few weeks we've commented and we've said that if you're going to knock him out, it's going to be in the quarterfinal. It's the first game. He's usually a bit of a slow starter. 105 average, 4 180s, 60% on his doubles. He was certainly out there to prove a point tonight on a stage he hadn't won on before in the Premier League.
Yeah, it almost feels like, well, Luke, he's upped his intention slightly in the Premier League. Not that I believe he was shown up to lose in any way, but I am a believer that when there's other big tournaments going on, he probably treats this as practice and he backs himself if he needs to go and win 3 out of 4 nights in the last few weeks. He backs himself to do it. So I think there's a slightly different level of intent. I mean, he's at the point, if he puts in a performance like that, 4 180s, 105 average, we kind of take it for granted a little bit. You know, if anyone else does that, we probably rave on about it a little bit more. But he set out his pedestal that he was here to give it a run tonight. He wasn't just showing up and messing on, throwing his loose darts. He set out with intentions of ending that Dublin record for sure.
And I think sort of the Premier League almost needs that, because I think when Luke Littler's at it like he was tonight, it just brings the best out of everyone else. I think we've seen Stephen Bunting hit 100 and 104 average there, and we'll go on to discuss his semi-final in a bit. But I think he's back in the hunt now. He's probably eyeing top spot in the table come playoff night. He's not there yet, but it certainly signs that the Premier League may now be the priority for Luke Littler for the next few weeks. If we move on to our third quarterfinal, and it felt a bit for Josh Rock tonight. He was battered on the board and sort of destroyed by the crowd as well in a 6-0 defeat. 84 average. We've seen players before, Dan, sort of going through these tough times in the Premier League. We've seen Mardell, we've seen Mark Webster, we saw Stephen Bunting last year, just to name a few there. Is there concern that long term it could affect his all-round game? I know on the floor he's still been performing quite well, but is there a worry that eventually 16 grueling weeks could catch up with him when he's only averaging 84?
I think it's a valid point. I don't have a concern just because of his age. I think Rock's very, very young. I think particularly the way he broke through as well. You know, he had that amazing match with Michael on Sky, and before Littler, Sky wanted him to become the poster boy, and then it didn't work out. So I think he's got some mental resilience because he's had to battle back from there, which is why I think in the long run he'll be able to do it again. But I can't see him turning this campaign around. I don't think it's an overnight fix. And yeah, I'm starting to feel a little bit sorry for him. I mean, showing up and 20 points aside on the averages, it's nobody enjoys seeing that at the end of the day. And I would love him to prove me wrong. And I mean, he's not going to make the playoffs, but put a run together and kind of catch up to the rest of the pack. But I really can't see it for this Premier League year.
No, and I think the concern for Rock here is his next 3 weeks are Clayton on night 8, Clayton again then on night 9, and then Gerwen Price on night 10. I'm not saying it gets any easier than that because it's then Stephen Bunting, Michael Van Gerwen, but it's. Are we starting to think he may not win the game at all in the Premier League, and that he'll just turn up, play his quarter-final, and sort of concentrate on everything else that he can win ranking points on and perform better at?
I can't see him going 1-16. I don't think he's going to have a record to be proud of at the end of the year, but he's a good enough dart player to beat somebody once, surely. You know what I mean? I don't see him beating Clayton, but can Rock beat Johnny Clayton in a race to 6? Yes, of course he can. But he's not the favourite in any of their matchups at the moment. So I don't think he'll get the 0 at the end, but I'm not going to be backing him to win any game anytime soon at the same time. It's going to be an upset when it comes.
Right, sorry to interrupt you down there. I'm seeing a few comments in the chat that my microphone is in and out, so I apologise for that. And I'll throw a question to you, Dan, about Price, and then I'll try and sort that out while you're chatting there. But Price 6-0, 103 average. Signs that his game is getting back to where he wants it and where we expect it to be.
Yeah, I mean, for 99% of the time we seen Gerwen Price playing this evening, it was like, oh my word, he's back. I think what we've seen at the end, not to give any spoilers, certainly raises some questions, and he'll be kicking himself a little bit. But I think once the initial shock of how things ended up, without spoiling anything, is kind of dies down a bit, I think Gerwen Price will be very happy and proud of the dart he's played this evening.
Indeed, and I think bigger picture, it's 2 points for him on the board, and it's just another step for him to try and find his way into the playoffs. And then on to the final quarter-final of the evening. And I guess what you could see or think as a bit of an upset in this year's Premier League, but I guess in the grand scheme of things, the Humphries beating Clayton 6-3 is probably what we'd expect to see. And it was a case, I guess, of Humphries doing to Clayton what Clayton's done to every other opponent at the quarterfinal so far this year.
Yeah, I think Johnny wasn't his usual self on the outer ring, which is what we come to expect. And let's face it, I mean, Humphries, if you look at, I haven't got the stats, but if you look at his averages across the Premier League, he probably feels like he's 6 or 7 points short on where he should be, really. He just hasn't been able to close out games and get them over the line. So I don't think it's any massive upset. I just think they're two really, really well-matched darts players at the end of the day. Humphries got the better of him today. It's no real thing to be worried about for Johnny. He's still sitting very pretty. He's done a lot of hard work. I'm sure he'll be conscious going into next week, but he has a favourable match. But he'll not want it to become a pattern of starting to lose quarterfinals, because then his lead at the top might start to vanish rather quickly. But for Clayton, you've had a not a great week. Move on to the next. And for Humphries, I thought Humphries was really good. Actually, it was the Luke Humphries that's been threatening to be there a lot recently. But he just seemed to have that extra 1.5% to finish the game off.
Yeah, he seemed. I don't know if relaxed is the right word for Humphries tonight, but he seemed to be that a weight had been lifted off his shoulders, and he was sort of almost enjoying it again. And I think when he is enjoying, he's a lethal player and dangerous, and can beat anybody on his day. We've seen him do it numerous times. But I agree with you in terms of Clayton, as in no need to panic. The hard work is done. He was going to lose a quarter-final, so if you're going to lose it, you might as well lose it to someone you expect to be with you in the playoffs. It's not as if it's a massive upset that shatters his campaign, and as you say, with favourable draw over the next 2 weeks, is hopeful as a fellow Welshman that he bounces that he bounces back and gets more points on the board.
I'm sure they said on comms as well, that's the first quarter final that Clayton's lost this season.
Yeah, it is.
I haven't fact checked that, but you know, if you're going to win 6 out of 7 quarterfinals, we'll be singing your own finals night. That's for sure. You know,
that's exactly it. He's done the hard work. I think if he gets 4 or 5 quarterfinal wins in the next 10, or sorry, in the next 8, he should easily make it into the playoffs. Right, moving on to the semi-finals. So yeah, Van Gerwen faced Littler, Price faced Humphries, and this is how they went. Van Gerwen, Littler, last leg decider. Littler coming back from 5-3 to take the win 6-5. Dan, for Van Gerwen, is this a massive opportunity missed, considering he was 5-3 up, to get some extra points on the onto his tally?
It's certainly an opportunity. And I think it's not only an opportunity to put points on your tally, it's an opportunity to get a win over Luke Littler, which, you know, it's like gold dust nowadays. I do think it's one of them, though, that I think the other 7 in the field probably know when you're playing Luke, sometimes the result won't make sense. You'll be in the driving seat and 10 minutes later you'll lose, and you almost just have to accept that. There's not much that can be done, but it would have been intriguing to see what would have happened if Van Gerwen would have had to battle past Veen. I mean, we'll never know, but would he have went into that more prepared? Would it have taken something out of him? But I think at the end of the day, Van Gerwen's got his 2 points for the week. He hasn't really had to work too hard for them. He's probably a little bit annoyed in isolation with how that's played out, but I don't think anyone in that field can be too annoyed if Luke Littler, well, other than maybe a game we'll talk about shortly, but I don't think too many people will get upset if Luke Littler beats him.
Kevin put in the comments there, MVG's period of dominance has ended. I think, well, no, I don't think. I agree with Kevin in that. Do we think, though, based on what we saw against Littler, that he can still push the top place? I mean, maybe make it deep in tournaments if he avoids Littler until the final, or was tonight one of those nights where everything clicked for him?
I think he can certainly go deep. I think he's going to need favourable draws. And it's when games start to get to the longer formats, and you know, your Littlers and Humphries, they get better as the games go. You know, you're playing them over 20 legs, you look at their averages, they get better and better, and that's where I struggle to see him grinding out defeats. But if he can get a draw where he's playing people kind of outside the top 8, top 16s, top 24s, and a bit of a favourable run, yeah, he's still Michael Van Gerwen. He can still make semi-finals and finals. I don't fancy him in the longer format against any of the big guns, so to speak, at the moment. I struggle to see how he wins.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. And even Littler had to have the last laugh this evening. Not only did he beat him, but taking a 170 out after seeing MVG do exactly the same.
And it was after Luke had just missed the 170 as well. It's like he couldn't let him have just a second and one up him at all, could he?
No, that's exactly it. And I think that shows the competitiveness and the fighting spirit that Luke Littler has got, that he wants to lead on anything. He on everything. He wants to be the one holding all the stats. He wants to better his opponent, and he just never knows that he's out of a game. And yeah, we'll go on to talk about this even more in a bit, but his ability to just from 5-3 down, just to sort of turn a switch and make it look quite simple, really, and just easing past MVG, who's a multiple major and world champion.
I mean, look, I know obviously we're a darts channel. We've waxed lyrical about Luke many a time, and I'm sure we will for the next decade or two, probably. But the fact at his age he can remain so calm down to like a multiple time world champion, and you don't want to, he's almost hypnotized us into thinking I'm not watching anything that special anymore. Because you're just used to it. We see it week in, week out. But you just blink, it doesn't feel like he's doing anything amazing, and he's just clawing back defeat. I mean, even the majors he wins, he can be 5-0 down. He's never, he can front run, he can catch you from behind. He's just different gravy to everyone else, really, you know, at the minute.
Yeah, and I think what we've seen now as well is that he can look average on telly. He can look like he's not really in a game, but you look at his averages and he's still averaging a turn. And I think that's the level he's taking darts to, is that if it's not 110, he's playing okay. And I think it's a case that these other players just have to knuckle down and find a way of getting back to him, because otherwise the gap will only grow until he decides to call it a day. And I think that's entirely up to him.
That
but
could
hopefully
be 34 years. That could be a long time.
Can you imagine? It's sort of Littler winning his 35th world title on the bounce, and it's.
I wouldn't bet against him. I wouldn't bet against that.
If somebody can do it, it's certainly Luke Littler. So moving on then to the second semi-final, and if the first one was a tight affair, the second one was anything but that, as Price ran away a 6-1 winner against Luke Humphries, despite Humphries averaging over a ton himself. Just never got a chance.
I mean, over the format, if Price does that, he's as good as unplayable. It was brilliant. He's got to a final. He's dropped one leg. He's averaging 100 plus, and you know what? Luke Humphries probably walks off that board and thinks, you know, I couldn't really do too much there. There's not enough superlatives to describe that performance from Gerwen Price. It was absolutely phenomenal. He blew him away. I think he really enjoyed being in Dublin. You know, I think Price, he's obviously had it in the past where he's been the villain. I think he enjoys having the crowd behind him, and it's nice that he's getting that a lot more now as well. He seems like a good bloke, so I just think it all come together in that performance. He was outstanding.
Yeah, and it felt like he was on it from the walk-on, as in he seemed quite business-like in his walk-on, not engaging a lot with the fans in the semi-final, which was a contrast to the final, where he sort of seemed to relax a bit more walking down to the stage. But yeah, Humphries took the first leg, and then from there it was just one-way traffic, and well, the stats to tell you everything: 109 average, 67% in his doubles, 5 180s, as in it's the Price that we know. When he is like that, he is unplayable, and not many people will keep up with him. As in, sort of thinking of Humphries gaining a point on Clayton, but could Humphries have done with probably going to the final and potentially trying to open up a gap between him and those outside the playoffs, or will he just be happy with the 2 points he got this evening?
I think, given the way it played out, he'll just accept what's happened there, and he's probably felt this a lot. Felt like he couldn't really do much more, but that pressure is starting to build now. As I say, I don't think he's done anything particularly wrong this evening, but you don't want to be in the dogfight for too long, you know. I mean, it can turn around so quick as well. I mean, I think it was only a couple of weeks ago Rock played Littler in the quarter-final, and we're seeing if Rock wins, Littler's bottom of the table, and all of a sudden. So I think Luke will be conscious he wants to get a night win on the board and just break that duck before it goes on.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if he plays like he does tonight, then I'd expect him to make finals again. Then all will be well again, and both leagues will be in the playoffs, and panic will be over, and darts will be the same as it's been for a few years. But for this evening, the final was contested between Gerwen Price and Luke Littler, and it was an absolute bonkers final. Littler winning
Have you
last leg
seen the
decider.
Have you seen the request in the chat by Alistair Jack that I'll let you talk about this one? God, he wants to
Oh
hear
yeah.
your thoughts.
It's interesting because obviously Price raced into a 5-0 lead, but I didn't think it was a fantastic final. And I don't think it was a fantastic final probably until maybe the last leg when they sort of traded 180s. It was, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just think because the way both played in their semi-finals, I was expecting big scores, big averages again, but it didn't quite kick off. And I think probably because Littler didn't get into the game until the 6th leg. And then he got into the game and Price disappeared. And it was absolutely crazy. And I think a 5-3, I thought Littler probably wins from here. I think it was that point when Price he missed tops, 10s and 5s, I think.
Yeah, but he went into the 20 with the
That's
5s
it,
as
yeah.
well. It wasn't very convincing, was it?
No. And it was that point I thought, right, yeah, Littler's going to come back now because he just finds a way, and when he needs to turn it on, he turns it on. Because I don't think he believed he was going to win till it was 5-3. And then Littler believed that he could do it.
Seen his reaction to the 5-1, and I think he hit a 180 when he was 5-1 down, and the leg he went 5-2, and he's like waving to the Dublin crowd like that's my goodbye present for you. And does it, as obviously we know you're a huge Gerwen Price fan as you back your own. Are you concerned about the record that Littler has against Price recently, and losing games like that it might do more damage?
I think it has to be a concern because I'm sure I saw somebody put in the comment. Yeah, Andy put in the comment. Littler's won 13 of the last 14 against Price. So I think naturally it has to be a concern because it's happening too often. And will he get a better opportunity to break that sort of hold he has over him? Probably not. You won't often see Littler. You won't often be 5 up on Littler in a race to 6. So that'll probably hurt more than a lot of the others, just because of how far he was in front. Yes, he will beat him at some point, but it'll probably be few and far between. And I think, and I think that's probably the issue for Price, is that it's not going to become a habit. It's going to become a luxury when he beats Littler, and I think Littler knows that as well. Littler won't admit it, but I think he knows that he's got Price in his pocket. In the same way, I think Price has got Clayton in his pocket. And you just know there are just some people you're 90% certain you're going to beat them, and I feel like that's where Littler is with Price at the moment.
Yeah, I think. I mean, look, there are sometimes you will play a Luke Littler and you lose, and there's not really much you could have done to change the outcome. But when you're 5-0 up on a Luke Littler averaging 90, that you've got to take that. Otherwise, it's really, as I say, of course you'll beat Luke. You know, we're going to play probably 15, 20 times a year. He will beat him, but you don't make him the favourite saying things like that. And the more that happens, the more it becomes a thing. And whether it's us speaking about it or it's in Price's head, or even if it's not in Price's head, if it's just in Luke's head and he's not going to give up on games, it's something that needs breaking quickly for the benefit of Price, I would say. He needs to try get one back over him pretty soon.
Definitely, because if you offered Price a 5-0 head start, Littler averaging 19 a race to 6, he'd have laughed at you and taken it straight away. So I think the fact he's lost that, it'll hurt him. As in, I think if Price is doing the Euro Tour this weekend, the best thing he can do is come up against Littler and hopefully beat him there, and then just put it to bed. Because if he sits on this till 2-3 weeks time when they play each other again on a Thursday night, then it's just going to eat away at him slowly. Because because that was a massive opportunity missed, and had Price won, he'd have been above Littler in the table as well. But as it happens, the gap has opened slightly further between the top two and the chasing pack. But shame the final probably didn't reach the heights everybody hoped, I think, because of how they played in the semi-final. But as somebody put in the comments, finals rarely reach the standards of the semi-final if they've been good battles. So looking at the table, we all know Rock bottom, 0 points, 0 wins. Bunting still in 7th. He's on 7 points. Van Veen in 6th. Obviously didn't play tonight. He's on 9 points. Van Gerwen then a point ahead of him on 10 points. Into the playoffs, Humphries now in 4th on 11 points. Price a point ahead in 3rd on 12. And then there's a bit of breathing space. Littler 2nd on 16. And Clayton top on 19. So yeah, that concludes us chatting about this evening's action. It's now time for you all to get involved as we look forward to next week. And forgot to press the button. The fixtures for next week are based on the tables, and first up, it's top v bottom, Clayton versus Rock. Tell you what, Dan, I'll go first here because it's a case of how many do I give Rock, I think. But yeah, I think Clayton wins. I think Rock's headspace on a Thursday night is just a case of get to the venue, play, and leave, unfortunately. And I think it'll probably be, or I'm going to go for a 6-2 Johnny Clayton.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to find a way to give a match to Josh Rock because I really like Josh Rock and I want him to break that 0 and get off the mark. You know what? He's not very outspoken. He seems like a lovely guy. He's not someone you enjoy watching getting beat week in, week out. But Johnny Clayton doesn't lose quarterfinals too often, and you don't fancy that happening 2 weeks in a row. I'm going to be slightly more generous to Rock, but I'm going to go 6-3 to the Ferret.
6-3, and I'd imagine probably most people in the chat will be with us based on what we've seen so far. So Gordon was first in this evening, going 6-3 to the Ferret. Andy Lorraine going 6-5 to Josh Rock. Rock picking up his first win, as in I imagine there'll be wild celebrations if that happens. Daz, good evening, Daz. 6-3 Clayton. We've got Alistair, Johnny to win 6-4. Malachi, Clayton 6-2, and Kevin 6-3 to the Ferret. So yeah, only Andy brave enough to pick a Rock win. So he'll either be putting egg on all our faces next week, or we'll be confident that we know what happens when it comes to Josh Rock, unfortunately. Moving on to the second quarterfinal. Oh, sorry, Jimmy's got one in later, 6-2 to the Ferret. So second quarterfinal of next week, Luke Humphries, Michael Van Gerwen 4th versus 5th in the table, Dan. Both making a semi-final this evening. How do you see this one going?
I think it's going to be a close match, but I'm going to see a Van Gerwen 6-4. I think it's going to be the story of the season. Humphries might average more. Humphries is probably going to outscore him, but I just can't trust Humphries in them tight clutch moments at the end of games at the moment. And I think Van Gerwen will have less opportunity, but he will hold it together better under pressure.
And if that does happen, then MVG will leapfrog Humphries in the table. I know we saw the best, well, I'm not going to say the worst of Humphries because he averaged 101 in defeat, but I just feel like we saw something from Luke tonight that made me think he's in the race now. He's in the Premier League, and I think I can't see MVG matching tonight's performance. So I think Humphries wins Humphries wins 6-4, I think. Yeah, so I'm going to go 6-4 Humphries. Into the chat, Andy in first. MVG to beat Humphries 6-4. Gordon then, Humphries 6-5 last leg decider. If it's anything like Van Gerwen Littler this evening, we'd be very happy with that. Kevin, Humphries to win 6-4. Malachi, Humphries 6-3. Alistair, MVG 6-5. Daz has gone 6-4. Luke and Jimmy 6-3 MVG. So very, very tight, that one. Yeah, well, they're fourth and fifth in the table. You expect a good battle. Next up, Littler against Bunting. I'll go first this time, Dan, because I'm generous, and obviously they faced each other this evening. The Littler got out on top of that 6-3, and to be honest with you, I can't see anything different happening apart from I'll give Bunting an extra leg, and I'll say it's 6-4 Luke Littler.
Well, that's almost exactly what I was going to say. So I'm going to have to slightly rethink. I can only see that being almost a carbon copy of today's match, where they'll probably average similar, but Luke will get over the line with it. I'm going to say it will be exactly the same, and it will be another 6-3 win for Luke Littler.
6-4 here, 6-3 Dan. What are you saying in the chat? Andy in first. Littler 6-2, 9 data, 114 average, as in I'm all for that, Andy. If that all comes in, I'd almost let you get the Rock win, but we're not going to go that far just yet. Kevin then, Littler to win 6-4. Gordon, Nuke 6-2. Oh, I've lost where I am. Bear with me a second. Jimmy 6-0 Littler. Daz 6-3 Littler. Most 180s. Alistair 6-2 Littler, and I thought this would be an unanimous decision, but Dale has come in with a cheeky Bunting 6-4, as in we've had a Rock win, we've got a Bunting win. Berlin could be bouncing if all these come in, and Malachi then Littler 6-3. Obviously, if you're a Clayton fan like myself, then you're not going to be bouncing if Rock wins, but it'll certainly throw up a lot of surprises. Malachi there, Littler 6-3, Bunting. Yes, and then the last quarterfinal is Gerwen Price versus Jan Van Veen, presuming that Van Veen is better and that he is able to play. He will come up against Gerwen Price in the quarterfinal. And how do you see this one going, Dan?
Well, I mean, I'm hoping Van Veen is back and fighting fit and is being able to practice at, but then again, I mean, Johnny Clayton with a limp was unbelievable last week. So maybe you've got to play with a bit of injury to be able to find the form. But hopefully Van Veen's back and we're not going to factor in any health concerns or anything like that. I think Price will be able to repeat some of this week's performance. I'm not sure exactly how far it'll take him, but I want to see a Price to beat Van Veen 6-4.
Price 6-4. Yeah, same. I really hope that Van Veen's there. I think it's better when you've got 4 quarterfinals because there's no, would you have been better if you'd have had a quarterfinal? And there's no sort of, if you lose, you lose, or having played, not miss out because you've not been able to play. But I just think how much practice can Van Veen put in? Because if Price plays anything like he did apart from in the final this evening, he's going to be very tough to beat. I think Price wins the last leg decider. I don't think it'll be as dramatic as the final where it's 5-0, 5-0, 6-5. I think he might be nip and tuck all the way, and then Price wins the decider to make it 6-5. So, Gordon, Andy's going Price to win walkover, no Van Veen again. Gordon's gone Van Veen 6-5. So not only does Gordon think he's there, Gordon think he's going to win. Kevin 6-4 to Price. Jimmy is with Andy in saying a walkover. Daz Van Veen 6-4. Malachy Price 6-4. And Dale Price 6-3. Alistair 6-4 to Price. And yeah, that's all of the quarterfinals done. So if you can all remember who you picked in your quarterfinals, it's time to pick both finalists and who wins the final. Dan, can I just check? Did you go Van Gerwen or Humphries?
I went Van Gerwen.
So I went Humphries. I knew we went different, but I couldn't remember who'd gone.
I write them down now, mate.
No,
I'd be useless.
That's clever. That's good preparation. I should have to learn that from you by next time. Right. So you've got Clayton, Van Gerwen, Littler, and Price. Where are we going for the finalists and who wins?
So I am going Clayton to beat Van Gerwen. Unfortunately for you, Corwin, it won't be an all-Welsh final. Littler will beat Price, but then Johnny will be good, and he will beat Littler 6-5 in a sudden death leg.
Right, end the show there because I'm more than happy with that. And let's go to bed. Wrap it up there. It won't end on a better note than that. So I think Clayton beats Humphries. I think Littler beats Price. And I think, let me do the maths here now. No, Littler will be within a point of Clayton as he beats him 6-2 in the final. So I think if my math's right, Clayton will be on 22, Littler on 21, and then it'll be all to play for. So, where are we here now? Dale was first in with his final prediction, and Dale, we're a big fan of this. Clayton Price final, Clayton to win 6-2. I think if that happens, Clayton can almost book a hotel for finals night because he'll be on 26, and it'll be hard not to get the playoffs on there. Littler to beat Rock 6-4 in the final. Well, that would be a turn up for the books if Rock was to go all the way to the final and potentially kickstart his campaign. And then Jimmy, MVG Price, MVG to win 6-5, MVG dragging himself right back in the playoff race if that was to happen. Kevin's gone for an all Luke final, Littler to win 6-3, and then Alistair, Littler versus Clayton. Oh no, Alistair, we don't like the sound of that. Littler to win 6-5, coming down from 5 down again. Oh no. Daz has gone on all Luke final, and Littler to win 6-5. Gordon's gone Clayton to beat Humphries 6-4. Littler to beat I can't remember who said that when the second quarterfinal, Gordon, but Luke is in the final, and then Luke beats Clayton 6-3 in the final and hits a 9-darter. Again, I'm all for the 9-darters, even if it goes against Clayton, we'll have a 9-darter. And then Daz in last year with Gordon. Littler to beat Van Veen. Sorry, thanks, Gordon. And Daz gone Littler to beat Luke Humphries 6-4. Before we leave you, the hardest working man in darts, that is Phil Bars, has managed to get a clip in for us with this evening's winner, Luke Littler. So I'll hit that now and let's see what Luke had to say after his victory.
Yeah, I mean, obviously 5-0 down, I'm out the game. I'm gone. Hit the first leg, give it a bit to the fans. I think they wanted a 6-0 and Gez definitely would have wanted a 6-0. And then obviously Gez set up the tops, hit a 180, waved the fans goodbye because in my head I'm done. When Gezi Price is sat on tops, he doesn't usually miss. And then from then I just lost track, don't remember much. Yeah, I think I've definitely learned a lot, especially with the fans. Obviously in the first game against Bunting I didn't give anything to the fans, didn't give a reaction, I just done my job, got the job done. And same in the final really. I think 5-0 down, everyone thought of obviously doubt me. I definitely doubted myself, but like I said, I had a little laugh and a joke. But yeah, I think if obviously for myself, I'm still learning not to react to the fans. And yeah, I didn't do much then, only for the first leg, and then yeah, I can build on it.
Yeah.
Just
What can you
one
say?
quick one before we go. How unnerving must that be for the rest of the field that the back-to-back world champion and multi-major holder is learning a lot and improving?
Yeah, it's not what you want to be hearing, really, isn't it? As in, they'll all
No.
be traveling back to the hotel or back to the airport, listening to us now, playing that clip of Luke Littler, and he says, "Yeah, I'm still learning," and God help us all.
Yeah, it's not what you want to hear. Definitely not.
No, exactly. If he's still learning, then who knows? Who knows where he can get to? Daz, I've seen you asking who's on tomorrow. I'm not sure if it's Phil or not, because obviously he was in the arena this evening in Dublin. But I'm sure somebody will be covering the Euro tour. And don't forget that the boys will be back on Monday night with the live lounge, and somebody, potentially Dan and I, potentially Cam, potentially Dan Simpson, potentially Dave from across the pond. We've got a big pool of people who love a bit of a fallout bar now after the Premier League, but
Depends who's
somebody
not
will be
drunk.
back. Sorry?
Depends who's not drunk.
Well, this is it. Yeah, as in, it's who can hit the go live button, and we go from there. But no, Dan, as usual, an absolute pleasure, and thank you very much for your company once again. And thank you all for watching and listening. And we'll see you next week. Until then, good night.
Oh, nice one, pal. Well done.